Hey everyone, so there's big news in the UK today. Medicinal cannabis use to be reviewed by the government, say the BBC. The use of medicinal cannabis is to be reviewed, which could lead to more prescriptions of drugs made from the plant, the Home Secretary has said. So this is in the light of the two boys, Billy Caldwell and Alfie Dingley, who both have severe epilepsy, who have been struggling to get their cannabis-based drug, which really does help both of them. And they're having the debates today in the Houses of Parliament, and I thought I'll tune in and see what these idiots have to say about something that they obviously have probably no clue of. And one of the first people up to ask a question was Richard Drax from, I believe he's South Dorset MP for Conservatives. Just take a listen to what this guy's argument was.
Richard Drax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I absolutely understand the government's review of this policy, and I welcome it for those who suffer and need this drug to make them better. But may I just say from my own life experience that drugs, and I'm delighted the government are not going to decriminalise the use of drugs, because all too often people start on cannabis end on something far worse. And I've seen personally the devastation to families and the loss of children because of drugs.
It's one of the first arguments that's made. It's worth noting, this is made by Richard Drax, MP, who thinks the same-sex marriage bill, the Equal Rights Bill, is one of the most intolerant pieces of legislation in years. That's how detached he is. So this argument has been debunked many times. It's the thin end of the wedge argument. It's not. It doesn't lead to harder drugs. The only way it leads to harder drugs is because currently, if you want to buy it, you have to go to people. You can grow it, but it's far more illegal to grow it. So if you want to buy it, you have to go to people who maybe sell you other kinds of drugs. That's the only way. It's the thin end of the wedge argument. And obviously, by making it legal or regulating it, you're taking that away. So I do hope that the new Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, got up and thoroughly rebuked his colleague here and put him in his place and basically gave him the facts of the matter rather than, listening to an argument that's been debunked many times.
Mr. Speaker, I agree wholeheartedly with my honourable friend.
Of course he didn't. I think as debates go in the Houses of Parliament, and I haven't watched many, this is the first I've watched in a long time, but this one is not off to a great start. Thankfully, a few minutes later, Norman Lamb got up, who's a Liberal Democrat MP who I believe has just had a stroke. So he's got up after a stroke and spoke some sense.
Mr. Norman Lamb.
Can I genuinely welcome this announcement, which does mark a significant shift, but isn't there a dreadful hypocrisy in government policy on drugs more generally? Probably most of the Cabinet drinks alcohol, the most dangerous drug of all. Probably half of the Cabinet has used cannabis, possibly even the Home Secretary, unless they're a group of very odd people. Perhaps that's the case. Shouldn't the Home Secretary actually follow the advice of the former Conservative leader, Lord Hague, who makes the case for a regulated, legalised market, and that is the best way to protect people from harm, who at the moment buy from criminals who have no interest in their welfare at all?
Exactly. It's so widely available in the UK, even though it is illegal, that there's no way they can fight it and win the battle. And that is wasting a huge amount of money just doing that. 1 million hours of police time a year wasted enforcing cannabis prohibition, say the Independent last year. And this was from the Evening Standard. Scotland Yard spends more than £1 million a year every year locking up cannabis users, former Cabinet Minister claims. So there's a waste of money there. And by regulating it and creating an industry around it, without all the other upsides, first of all, it's going to make it safer. But this was Sajid Javid's reply.
Mr. Speaker, this is about making sure that we have the best possible medical treatment available for everyone in the UK, but especially our children. That's what this is about. It's about medical treatment. It is not about the recreational use of drugs, which can cause severe damage to people. So I'm afraid I don't agree with the right honourable gentleman on that point, and on this occasion, I do not agree with Lord Hague.
What damage? They never go on to say what actual damage there would be. Because whatever the damage would be, it's still nowhere near the damage that tobacco and alcohol consumption cause, or excess tobacco and alcohol consumption. It's not even close to it. And the arguments they make are just ridiculous. They're so outdated. There's a great article from Vice. This is back in 2014. And they talked about a study. Now, granted, this study was funded by people who were pro-marijuana. But this study said that the UK cannabis industry back in 2014 was about 15 times the size that of Colorado's cannabis industry. Now, just think about that. 15 times the size. Look at all the benefits that Colorado have been seeing. There have been some downsides as well. But look at all the benefits to their economy. Chiefly to their economy. And this article from Vice went into detail about it, and it estimated that at that price, £185 an ounce, it's probably about £200 an ounce now. They said it would be £6.8 billion a year. That's the size of the industry. So now it would be about £7.5 billion. And to give you some context, that's just about half the size of the British tobacco industry. I wonder if they'll have a say in whether weed becomes legal in the UK. This was from The Independent back in 2016. Cannabis legalisation in the UK would raise £1 billion a year in taxes. But that doesn't tell the whole story. Because that Vice article said there's VAT to add on to that as well. That's a total of around £2.5 billion in tax revenue a year. It doesn't sound a lot taken into the context of the size of the Treasury. It adds something like 1.5%. But that 1.5%, as this article states, could be used to pay for the starting salaries of over 100,000 teachers, 10 million nights in an NHS bed, over 100,000 police cars and their maintenance for 4 years, every single elderly person's winter allowance, or 1 billion school dinners. Every single elderly person's winter fuel allowance. The stoners could literally be keeping the old ladies and the old gents warm at night in the winter. Thank you, stoners, you're welcome. Boris Johnson could campaign for that and put the slogan on the side of the bus. That would be fine. To put it into the context of how big an industry that is, the agriculture industry, and this is from Wikipedia, I apologise for the source, but the agriculture industry in the UK is worth 9.4 billion. So it's getting close to it. It's about 75% of that, 60 to 75% size of the entire agriculture industry, which employs 535,000 workers in the UK. So we're talking at least, what, 250,000 extra jobs in the UK. And the great thing about that is a lot of these jobs will be perfect for the stoners who have spent their whole life getting stoned on the couch. Now they could contribute to the society because they would be experts in the field. And this is also hypocritical of the government. Because just in March, this article was in Sky News. I think they broke it. It might have been somewhere else. But the United Kingdom is the world's largest producer of legal cannabis. How hypocritical is that? How ridiculous is that? In a country where children are literally having seizures, while the government is dragging its feet over red tape and legislation, trying to paper over cracks in their own government rather than actually deal with the problem. A government where children are suffering seizures because of all these problems in a country that exports more legal cannabis than any other country in the world. That blew my mind when I saw that. They've got no problem exporting it to other countries, but that medicine is not good enough for our people. Look at the amount of things that marijuana is used in other countries and medically proven to help a lot of these things. Pain, nausea, for instance. It is great. It's one of the only things that calms down people who are nauseated when they're going through chemotherapy because they've got cancer. Even if it doesn't cure cancer like some people claim, it at least cures one of the side effects of one of the current treatments for cancer. One of the main side effects. Muscle spasms, anxiety, multiple sclerosis, low appetite, sleep problems, autism, epilepsy, of course, and other conditions. And the downsides, very few. Very, very few. It makes no sense for the government, any government, to be taking the line that they are taking. Well, at least make it available medically like they did in California, in America, before it became legal over there. And actually have dispensaries that you could go to. And on that note, I'm going to go and smoke a bowl. Peace. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and please click the bell down there so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. Otherwise, YouTube will hide the video from you. Yes, they have admitted that they do that. Also, we're facing an absolute onslaught in independent media from the establishment at the moment, including YouTube. I don't make any money from YouTube whatsoever. I rely totally on the audience for me to continue doing this. So if you can afford to send me $2, $3, $5, whatever it is that you can afford through Patreon, again, the link is down there, I will be eternally grateful, and it'll allow me to keep giving you the truth and cut through the propaganda and the BS that we get from the corporate and establishment media. If you can't afford to do it, please share the video as wide as you can. Talk to your friends and family about the issues that I and other channels on YouTube who are independent raise. Thanks very much for your support. We have to fight back against this. Till next time, peace and take care.